This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's going on, everybody? So much to get to on a Tuesday after the Monday night doubleheader. We had 2 NFL games. We had 2 MLB postseason games last night as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy, Buonantony with you, and we're coming to you coast to coast today. No JVT. He's got a day off today, but very fortunate to have our good buddy Keith Irizarry holding it down over there on the East Coast. And a long time no see, buddy. How are you? It's been a minute.
I'm good. You've been jet setting, which has been fun to watch from afar. You're crushing it in all your things that you're doing. It's been a blast. The Instagram posts are kind of fun to kind of see some of the, you poking fun at yourself, your broadcast partners poking fun, and then you just dominating as well. So it's been fun for me to watch.
You're very sweet. I appreciate you. And mostly just me being a hot mess on Instagram. I would say that's probably the more accurate representation. But you too, crushing it. And I was actually going to say, I feel like if I had to choose anyone to fill in for JVT this week, I'm so happy it's you, because not only the energy you bring, but the background with MLB Network, NHL Network. October is like prime Keith Irizarry month.
Yeah, this quite possibly is my favorite 3-week stretch where we get a little taste of everything, because whether it's I'm working for MLB Network, NHL Network, I do stuff for ESPN, you guys here at VSiN,
Yep.
SNY. So I'm literally covering all the 4 major sports, and all of them in some facet, whether it's NBA preseason, which I don't really bet on ever, but I'm still following. Every single one of the major 4 sports, and then you include college football as well, is booming right now. It couldn't be better than this. And yes, you're a hockey person like me. The NHL season is underway. I couldn't be happier. It is so much fun, and I'm glad we're getting Bob Wischusen on later.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a perfect setup for what we have on deck, as we always do. Let's start the program by firing up the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
You mentioned Bob Wischusen. He is going to join us coming up in the second hour of the program today. He is going to be on the call for Lightning Caps tonight in the NHL. He'll also be calling Duke and Georgia Tech on Saturday for a huge game in the ACC standings, and of course also the voice of the New York Jets. His reaction to the 0-6 start for Aaron Glenn and being a dog at home to the Carolina Panthers on Sunday will be an interesting conversation. We will also have VSiN's own managing editor Adam Burke with us here in the first hour for about 30 minutes, get into plenty of college football talk, and as you mentioned, the MLB postseason. Maybe he can tell me a good way to describe that 8-6-2 double play last night. What the heck was that?
I don't know if anyone can fully explain it. It is one of the weirdest things that we have seen, and seemingly everyone's blaming Teoscar Hernandez for it.
Just weird base running confusion. So yes, we will get into that. And of course, preview the game that we have coming up tonight. Plenty of hockey, though, in addition to having Wischusen on. We're going to have a new segment today that JVT and I were workshopping a name for. We settled on Puck Around and Find Out, diving into the NHL slate a little bit later on. 8 games on deck in the NHL today following yesterday's 10-game holiday slate. Happy belated Thanksgiving to our Canadian brethren, by the way, yesterday. How did you like the matinee games? For me, it was a little weird. 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, we've got hockey on the television.
Yeah, it was tough for me because my sons were off from school, so I'm running around doing things with them. So I wasn't able to be, glued in front of a television. Had the kids been in school, it would have been the best day ever. I would have just watched hockey all day and maybe sat on my Peloton bike while I was doing it. It would have been awesome.
I don't know if Jonathan Davis posted a video of it, but I know he sent me one of his setup with about 20 screens in his room. It was glorious, like his own Circa Sportsbook at home. But again, we'll get into all of that. And also, going to be a heavy NFL day today. We have lots of news and injury statuses to get you guys updates on. Garrett Wilson, George Kittle, Devin Lloyd among them, plus the latest in Tennessee after the Titans fired Brian Callahan. But let's start, Keith, with what transpired last night, where the dogs were barking in primetime. Buffalo loses by 10 as a 4.5-point favorite, 24-14 against Atlanta. Total stays under there. We did, by the way, still cash our Josh Allen over 1.5 touchdowns prop, so let's get it. And then Chicago, after losing on a heartbreaking Hail Mary in what was a hinge game to their season a year ago, got revenge. They overcome an 8-point fourth quarter deficit last night. Jake Moody, elevated from the practice squad earlier in the day, he ends up kicking the walk-off field goal. And everyone, myself included, that have watched him in San Francisco says, where the hell is this guy when you were out there in Santa Clara? Neither here nor there. What was the bigger surprise of the two games last night for you, Keith?
It's Atlanta, and it's the way that Atlanta beat Buffalo. It's not necessarily that the Falcons won the game because, I think most of us came into the year believing the Falcons had a chance to win the NFC South. They were a team with a lot of talented offensive weapons, but the question was going to be on the defensive side of things, like what can they do? They came in with a game plan against Buffalo that we are going to blitz Josh Allen almost every single down. They blitzed on more than 70% of the offensive snaps by Buffalo. That's insanity. And the reason why they were able to pull that off is twofold. One, I think they're better on defense than we all kind of thought. And two, Buffalo doesn't have the horses, doesn't have the weapons around Josh Allen. So if Josh Allen is running around with like a chicken with his head cut off, every once in a while, sure, Shavers made a nice catch or Shakir made a nice catch. But Buffalo doesn't have a real number one wide receiver, doesn't have a go-to guy. They have a bunch of, and I don't want this to sound disparaging because all of the Bills receivers are in the NFL and they are there because they are elite athletes. I'm not the guy that's going to be like, oh, that guy's garbage. No, I'm not doing that. But they don't have a number one. They have a bunch of twos and threes. And that's going to be something Buffalo is going to have to try to figure out as this year goes on and when you get closer to the trade deadline, if there's any wide receivers out there. That, to me, was the most shocking thing, is that Atlanta was able to come in with a game plan, stick with the game plan, and then dominate that game plan.
And to your point about that pass rush and bringing pressure on the quarterback, that's something that's held Atlanta back for how long? And it seems like some of those defensive acquisitions that they've made in the draft and beyond are actually starting to pay off here a little bit. And to your point about the Buffalo offense, it felt like, to your point, Josh Allen, James Cook, and nobody else. And when your quarterback is turning the football over, which he largely was able to get out of his system last year en route to the MVP, that was the big problem with Josh Allen throughout the course of his career, was that he's turning over the football. He has 2 interceptions yesterday. I know the tipped one late isn't necessarily his fault, but it still happens, and it's a tough watch. And now you look at the numbers for Buffalo's 4-0 start compared to the last 2 losses that they've had. First 4 weeks of the season, this offense was averaging 33.3 points per game with just 1 turnover. The last 2 weeks to losses against New England and Atlanta, 17 points per game and 5 turnovers. And that's been a big story for these last 2 weeks where they have struggled. And also, you look at the opponents that they beat, the Ravens, Jets, Dolphins, and Saints, those are teams that are combined 3-21 right now. So this Buffalo team that we thought out of the gates could be dominant and a Super Bowl contender, showing some serious flaws right now.
Yeah, I don't think that again, it's 6 weeks into the season and Buffalo still has 4 wins. So while you and I are definitely talking about a bunch of the negative parts there, it's really early to say that this team is going down the drains. But what you can do when you reach 6, 7, 8 weeks into a season is you start kind of figuring out, like, are they on the right path? Mm-hmm. And I think you're correct to take note of the 4 wins are against teams that aren't very good, and the losses are against, Atlanta Falcons, who seem to be a team on the rise. There are flaws with this Buffalo Bills team. But I guess, Stormy, if you go through the entire NFL, there isn't really a dominant team right now. It kind of feels like almost every team has flaws. Like, if I literally said to you, who's the best team in the NFC, I'd imagine that if you polled everyone at VSiN, we would get a different answer.
100%. And you could say the same thing for the AFC. That's why JVT and I have had so many questions about like the Colts and the way that they've risen up. The Chiefs have been having a wonky start, but now are they the leader in the clubhouse again? It's really hard to put your finger on it in a lot of senses. Do want to shout out Bijan Robinson, because we talked on the program yesterday about how in the Monday night games it was going to be a running back type of a game. Bijan comes out here, goes over the rush attempts we discussed, 19 carries for 170 yards on the ground, a touchdown. Longest rush, yeah, I think you cash that when you go for 81 in a single spot. Goes over the receptions as well, 6 for 68, 238 all-purpose yards. Big day from Drake London as well. catches, 10 of his 16 targets, 158 and a touchdown there. Last couple of minutes, let's go take a look at this Bears-Commanders game, though. 25-24 your final. Bears win is straight up as a 5.5-point dog in this spot as well. DeAndre Swift, credit again to the running backs, 175 total yards for him, including the big 55-yard touchdown on 3rd and 4 in the fourth quarter. And Jaden Daniels with a messy, costly exchange fumble on 3rd and 1 for Washington, their third turnover of that game with 3:10 to go, up 2. First lost fumble of his career, and it cost him the win.
This looked like Jaden Daniels was trying to do too much in this game. No Terry McLaurin, still not really a trustworthy ground game, whether it's, Bill or whomever is running the ball. It just kind of looked like Daniels trying to do a lot. So listen, McLaurin's going to come back. This team will probably be okay. We've seen other QBs struggle in their, sophomore campaign. On the other side, by the way, for all the people that said, oh, this Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, it can't work. Caleb Williams is too much of an outlier. He's a gunslinger. Guess what? It just took a few weeks, and Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams have kind of, mixed, and they're looking good. And Caleb wasn't all world, but guess what? He still doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't turn the ball over, and all coaches are happy about that.
Yeah, guess who all of a sudden is playing within the framework of the offense? Caleb Williams. And he did throw for 252 yards, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown yesterday. And for all the panic after the 0-2 start with what this was going to look like with Ben Johnson getting somewhat embarrassed against the Detroit Lions, 3-0 since, and some people might not want to give them the credit that they deserve for the Dallas and Vegas wins. They can be picked at. I don't know if last night can be picked at. Bears have now, over the last 3-week stretch, had an NFL high +10 turnover margin. We'll see if they can keep that rolling. Yesterday, when we were on the air, Keith, the Bears were a 25-1 shot in the division, +540 to make the playoffs. After last night, 13-1 in the division. At ESPN Bet, they're even shorter, 10-1, leapfrogging the Vikings, +250 to make the postseason. Packers an even money favorite. Detroit still +145. Okay, we are just getting started here on Money Moves. So much more to get into. Lots in the NFL, Major League Baseball. It's October, baby. Let's have some fun. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, any of our great local affiliates, wherever you're watching or listening, we appreciate it. If you want to join in on any of the conversation today, make sure you tweet at us, at Storm Buonantony, at Keith Irizarry, at VSiN Live. We would love to interact with you and see some of your opinions on our takes and thoughts as we go here. And Keith, let's jump right into more NFL talk, because yesterday, right when JVT and I came on the air, we had the breaking news in Tennessee that head coach Brian Callahan was being fired after just a 4-19 record his first 2 years at the helm in Tennessee, 1-5 this year. He is our first head coach firing in the league this season. And then this morning, we have a little bit more information after the Titans brass spoke on the podium. Senior offensive assistant and former NFL head coach Mike McCoy will take over in the interim role. And Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi talked a lot about McCoy's experience as a former head coach, quarterback, the guys he's worked with, and how as a team so far this season, they just haven't been growing. They haven't had the steps of growth and development that they need to see. Do you agree with that assessment? And what was your reaction yesterday when you learned the news of Callahan's firing?
I wish that I could tell you, Stormy, I was shocked, but I'm just not surprised by anybody losing their jobs nowadays. It seems like, in an economic state where people are saying that, oh, money is tight, money is this, money is that, and all these schools and organizations have money to burn. Essentially, they're just firing people and saying, leave, we'll just pay you because we don't want you here. So that's like one part of it. I'm not surprised. Now, again, and Stormy, I think I've said this to you before, I never call for people's jobs. These are people's livelihoods. People have families. People have bills to pay, all of that kind of stuff. I'm not surprised. I mean, it wasn't going well. Cam Ward and the rest of this Titans offense looks desolate. It looks like the kind of offense that it wasn't creative. It wasn't fluid. It wasn't doing anything. And each and every week, it almost looked like Cam Ward was getting even more and more frustrated, dare I say flustered in the pocket. It seemed like there needed to be a new voice. And when that happens, usually it's either the head coach, if they're an offensive-minded head coach, or you get rid of your offensive coordinator or a QB coach or something like that. So, no, I wasn't surprised. I feel a little bit bad for Callahan. He's had some success in the past working with quarterbacks. This appears like something that didn't work. And I think that the Titans were in one of those situations where, should we just run through an entire season and let this rookie QB struggle with insert, this coach, Callahan? Or do we rip the Band-Aid right now and maybe we fix this during the year? I think they went with option B.
Yeah, and it'll be curious to see how that progresses because Callahan was the play caller to start the year. He made the decision after a couple of games to give that to Bo Hardegree. Now with McCoy taking over, does he make another decision in that area? And that's tough on a rookie quarterback to have so many voices in his head so early. But unfortunately, this is kind of a common trend that we're seeing in the National Football League over the last decade. 8 quarterbacks have been taken as the number 1 overall pick. 6 have had head coach changes their first season, including each of the last 3 number 1 overall picks. Like Cam Ward is the 3rd straight top pick to have this type of a coaching change happen to him early on in his career. So we'll see what it looks like. And then add this to it in a twisted turn of fate. The Titans now have to turn around and host the head coach that they fired to hire Callahan to begin with. The Titans are getting 7 at home to the New England Patriots, who all of a sudden look resurgent and ahead of schedule under Mike Vrabel's tutelage.
Yeah, you wonder if the Titans brass might be sitting there going, Vrabel would be good if he was still here for us. Why did we do that? On the Patriots side of things, Drake May, like the terminology used was ahead of schedule. The Patriots are ahead of schedule. Drake May looks like, so you ever do the exercise where you go like, what number would you rank this player in, the NFL, right? So I do this often with my boys. Both of my boys are nuts when it comes to sports. And my older son, even more at 14 years old, is like really, really fully invested. So he said to me, goes, Dad, I think Drake May is a top 12 QB in the NFL. If I say that to you, Stormy, doesn't that sounds high? You're going to go, no, he's not top 12, right?
Yeah.
Would that be how you'd respond? Yeah. So that's what I did. Do it. He's a top 12 QB. I went through it and I couldn't find 12 more QBs that I would want ahead of Drake May. I had him at number 12. Like I literally went through everything and I couldn't find 12 better QBs than Drake May. So if Drake May is going to be a top 12 QB with Vrabel, who is a legit NFL, head coach, with some wide receivers that are looking like they're starting to pick it up, with a defense that is now causing havoc all over the place, in an AFC that is wide open, with, like we said at the beginning of the show, a flawed Buffalo Bills team. If I'm Vrabel and I'm the Patriots, I'm sitting there every single day and I'm saying, why not us? Why not us?
I'm pulling up the odds right now for the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills are still an odds-on, like more than $2 favorite in the division, but the Patriots maybe get a little bit more attractive at plus 165. I had a preseason exacta in the division for Bills number 1, Patriots to finish second in the division. But New England, again, we use that ahead of schedule verbiage. It really feels like they're on the right track. And to your point, Drake May has just been dropping dimes and looking better and better every single week. Again, 7-point spread in Tennessee, total 42.5 in that one. First segment, we were talking about what we saw from the Atlanta Falcons earlier last night. They are taking on the 49ers this week, who are both getting healthier and more injured at the same time, unfortunately. Got an update on George Kittle, who's been on injured reserve since week 2 with strained right hamstring. He will return to practice this week. That opens up his 21-day window. When Kyle Shanahan was asked if he has a chance to play on Sunday night against the Falcons, said that's the hope. He also added Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall may also return to practice this week. They'll get evaluated Wednesday and be day-to-day from there. We saw Juwan Jennings make his return this past week, but on the other side of the coin, Fred Warner is also having his season-ending ankle surgery today, and we know Nick Bosa is already done for the year. 49ers are still at home this week, 2.5-point favorite, despite all of those injuries and issues, total 47.5. After what you saw from the Falcons this past week, could they be a live dog here as a plus 114 money line underdog?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're amazingly coached, right? We know that. And seemingly whatever they do comes out roses. Still 4-2. They are arguably the most injured team in the NFL. So George Kittle goes out and you're like, all right, well, now we don't have a tight end. Well, Jake Tonjes has come in and he's scoring touchdowns and making good catches. And then you go, Ricky Pearsall goes out. Oh, we don't have a number one wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne is suddenly the best wide receiver in the NFL over the last 2 weeks. I'm half kidding there, but he really has been fantastic. And Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey. Like, he's been good and he's everything you expected. Oh, Brock Purdy, let's pay him a boatload of money. He's injured. Now we got the oft-cast Mac Jones. He won't be able to do it. Oh, well, actually, Mac Jones has been perfectly fine and above adequate as a starting QB. So this to me feels like a culture thing. It feels like a coaching thing. The Niners need to just stay afloat. They are 4-2. If you can, even if you go like 3-3 in your next 6 games, right? And you're suddenly 7-5, Brandon Ayuk will be back. You'd have hopefully a fully healthy Ricky Pearsall, a fully healthy George Kittle, a fully healthy Brock Purdy. You hope that McCaffrey stays healthy for the entire season, and then you just got to kind of figure some defensive things out as well. This Niners team is set up for success because of their quick start at 4-2.
Yeah, 4-2 to start the year.
Oh, by the way, also their strength of schedule is pretty easy.
That's exactly what I was about to say. And look at the schedule. There's a lot of opportunity. They still, by the way, in the NFC West, the Rams are your favorite now, plus 140, but 49ers at a plus 155 price if you want to jump in. Seattle also plus 285, who's been pretty darn good with Sam Darnold as their QB1. Well, we're going to talk more about the Jets a little bit later on when ESPN's Bob Wischusen joins us. He's, of course, the radio play-by-play voice of the New York Jets, but we got big news yesterday that Garrett Wilson had his MRI. ESPN's Adam Schefter said he hyperextended his knee, and while they are fortunate to avoid serious injury, he is still expected to miss a couple of weeks. It'll be the first time he's missed time in his young career. So you have the mixed bag of a sense of relief. It's not season ending, but also not a great situation for an offense that's been struggling and is 0-6.
Yeah, what was the number? Like the meters that the plane traveled over to London was like triple the amount of yards that the Jets actually got or something like that. There was some weird stat. It's a Jets offense that looks anemic. There's not another word for it. Justin Fields is struggling. They're just not doing anything. And now you're going to take away the lead dog and the wide receiver and Garrett Wilson. It's getting scary really quickly in New York for the Jets.
And that is why, coming up on Sunday, they are a home underdog to the Carolina Panthers. Who would have seen this one coming? And how about Carolina for the win over Dallas this past weekend? Kudos to them. Total in that game coming up on Sunday, 42.5. They have Carolina this weekend, then they're at the Bengals next week before their bye. The expectation or hope is that Wilson will be available after the bye. And hey, as we have talked about, yes, it is football season, but we have the MLB playoffs underway. Hockey is back. The NBA is tipping off next week. And with that, remember, VSiN Pro is the way to go. We got everything you need to win across every sport. Daily best bets from all of our show hosts and guests. Real-time DraftKings and Circa betting splits, plus now our AI-powered prop tools as well at VSiN.com. 24/7 video and so much more. Plus, right now, you get our NBA betting guide as a part of the subscription. VSiN.com/subscribe. Sign up now for as little as $9.99 or save 50% off with your annual plan. We're going to step aside when we come back. VSiN's own Adam Burke joining us in studio here in Vegas.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Tuesday edition of Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony with you alongside Keith Irizarry, who's in for our guy JVT. And excited as always to welcome in our good buddy Adam Burke, live on the desk here at Circa Resort and Casino, VSiN.com managing editor, also our MLB betting expert. And with October baseball in full swing, we got to get into what we saw last night, which so far, road teams taking the early advantage in both the NL and ALCS respective series. Seattle looks dominant in Toronto for a 10-3 win yesterday. And then we get the Dodgers-Brewers game yesterday that had maybe the weirdest play in the history of history. What happened in that fourth inning from your perspective?
I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you what happened in that inning. It was a very, very strange situation, obviously. And, it was just another example of the Dodgers squandered a lot of opportunities last night. Still found a way to win the game. They drew 8 walks. They had 7 hits. They were just 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Milwaukee was 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position, and it was the out that ended the game. So the Dodgers had plenty of chances to blow that thing open. They didn't. It got really dicey in the 9th inning, but sometimes the playoffs are just about surviving, and that's what the Dodgers did in game 1. They took home field advantage away, and of course now have the chance to really control the series if they can win tonight.
Keith, how did you see it?
Yeah, you know what I like about Adam's answer is that he didn't have an answer, and I think that is okay sometimes. Like, I think it's okay, because I'm in the same boat. Like, I was confused by what happened that inning. I was confused by what was going on with the Dodgers a little bit. I'd like to throw this to Adam, though. As you're watching Blake Snell kind of almost turn back the clock and look like the Cy Young winner that he once was and be so dominant this postseason, and then yesterday go 8 innings, 1 hit allowed, 103 pitches. There are 2 questions I want to ask here, and it's bad journalism, so I'm hoping that you'll answer both of them. 1, what are you seeing from Blake Snell? And 2, were you surprised that he was taken out of the game after 8 innings?
No, I'm not surprised he was taken out. I mean, the playoffs are so much about specialization, and you're going to go to your guys, and it almost backfired for Dave Roberts. But, for Snell, I mean, yesterday had 22 swings and misses out of 49 swings. The stuff looked good. The velocity looked good. Everything was coming out free and easy. And this is a guy that, honestly, he needs to just challenge hitters more. He's a guy who's got really, really good contact management numbers throughout the course of his career. Hard hit percentage is low. Barrel rate is low. You have to hit in a lot of deep counts against him, so you're just kind of protecting the strike zone, just kind of trying to foul things off, put something in play, stuff like that. But yesterday, because he was able to pound the zone as much as he did, he was able to be super efficient. And, that's something that's really important when you talk about a 7-game series. And I know this was discussed a lot in the division series. When you start seeing these bullpen arms over and over and over again, like, they don't throw anything new at you. Usually when you face relievers, it's different arm slots, it's different arm angles, different handedness as well, all these different types of things. But as you get deeper into a series and you see those guys more frequently, they become less effective. So the fact that Snell was able to give them 8 innings while the Brewers had to kind of empty the tank and use a bunch of different relievers should benefit the Dodgers as we go forward throughout the course of this series.
8 innings, a shutout ball, no walks, 10 strikeouts, allowed just 1 base runner. He was calling his own pitches, had his own little cheat sheet out, which, I mean, you don't see that often. Very rare and awesome for what he was able to do. And you mentioned the bullpen trying to close it out. Nearly Bryce Terang missed opportunity with the bases loaded to get hit by a pitch and have that game-tying run. Doesn't happen. So the Dodgers end up taking game 1. Game 2 today, coming up at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Yoshinobu Yamamoto on the hill. Dodgers around a -125 road favorite in this spot, taking on Freddie Peralta on the other side. Run total here, 7.5. Anything stand out to you about tonight's action?
Yeah, one thing I want to mention real quick about the Bryce Terang thing. Like, your instinct is not to stand there and get hit by the pitch, right? I mean, that was just something that was almost involuntary to some degree. And I know that people are kind of like, oh, you got to wear it. You got to stay in there, all of that. Like, yeah, he sees a projectile coming at him and he's just doing what a hitter normally would.
It's a reflex.
Right, exactly. That's all it is. And so,
it's an unfortunate timed reflex in this case.
And the bigger issue is then, of course, chasing a fastball up around your forehead that you couldn't hit. But, that was just a reaction thing. Like, that was, I think people criticizing him for that are definitely misguided there. As far as today's game goes, so, the thing about the Brewers is that they held the Dodgers to 16 runs in the 6 head-to-head meetings during the regular season. And obviously the Dodgers, of course, only getting 2 runs yesterday. Milwaukee's a very, very brilliant organization from a pitching standpoint. They're going to have a plan of attack here for Freddie Peralta today. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who actually got run from the first inning of his game against the Brewers, didn't even make it out of there. He only had 2 outs. I think he'll be just fine in this spot. This is a pretty forgiving ballpark. The splitter is obviously great for him. He's looked really good in the postseason, over the 2 years that he's been able to pitch in it. And, just a guy that, again, is going to make it really difficult for the Brewers to square anything up. And, it's kind of surprising that Milwaukee is here to begin with because their contact quality metrics are really, really low. They don't barrel anything. They don't hit a whole lot of balls hard. They just play really good defense, run the bases effectively, stuff like that. So against a guy like Yamamoto, who doesn't give up a lot of hits, I think it's going to be really tough for Milwaukee to score here again tonight. So I played the under 7.5. I played it last night at a much better number than what we have here tonight, where you're playing a little bit more juice in this one. But I guess it's going to be another low-scoring game.
Yeah, and I'll add in, I think Yamamoto, most books have over 16.5 outs. I think he could top that one. Stormy, you and I will talk about it a little bit later as well, but I like Freddie Freeman over 1.5 total bases here. Decent numbers against Peralta. And Freddie's kind of struggled this postseason for as good as he has been during the regular season. Postseason, he is kind of, he hasn't been great. So I'm with you also on the under on the runs there. I think we are set for kind of a low-scoring game. All right, let's just bring it back over to the ALCS. What is this, October Polanco? Jorge Polanco looks like everything that people always hoped he could be. He has been fantastic. Homers in 3 consecutive games. He's been dominant. Is this Seattle team just better than Toronto?
I don't think better is the word that I would use necessarily.
Did I stump you? That's awesome.
I do like this Toronto team quite a bit, but I'm trying to figure out what's happened here, in the first 2 games of this series. So I do think John Schneider did have a little bit of a quick hook on Kevin Gausman in game 1. I'm a big believer of specialization, as I said. I mean, I'm a Guardians fan, so the sooner they can get to the bullpen, usually the better, at least last year. But this year, the starting rotation was really good. But I like, the times through the order penalty is something that's very, very important to keep in mind when you talk about the playoffs, because the margin for error is so much slimmer because you're facing good teams, right? It's not like you're playing the dregs of the league like you get to during the regular season. But offensively, Toronto just really hasn't been able to do too much here. And this is an offense that was phenomenal at home. They scored over a run per game more at home than they did on the road. And it was an even bigger gap before they went to Coors Field and scored 45 runs in 3 games. So it was really surprising to see Toronto struggle offensively as much as they did. You almost sort of feel like, they beat the Yankees. They were really excited about that. And then they come home. You have a couple of days off at home. Whereas the Mariners, who were in really, really bad spots in games 1 and 2 from a travel standpoint, they just kept on going. They just stayed locked in the whole time. And Toronto hasn't been able to flip that switch yet as a team who doesn't really have a lot of playoff experience. So I think that's part of it.
Something JVT brought up on the show yesterday, because we were talking about how Toronto was able to pretty much score at will in that series with the Yankees. Were they just taking advantage of and picking on a Yankees pitching situation, and then you'd come to face a Seattle team that's much better in that area, and it's just a different competition?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of it, but also the thing about a lot of these Seattle guys is a lot of them have really big home road splits, because T-Mobile Park is the best pitcher's park in baseball, or at least, very close to it with Petco and Oracle, stuff like that. Certainly the best pitcher's park in the American League. So these are a lot of guys who, aren't nearly as effective when they go out on the road, but then, they were pretty effective here. I mean, Logan Gilbert had the one tough inning that he kind of had to fight his way through. Bryce Miller got very fortunate. A lot of balls in play. Some of them hit really, really hard. There were 4 lineouts on balls with expected batting averages of 500 or higher against him. So Toronto did get a little bit unlucky, but still, I mean, Seattle is a team that it felt like when they got over the hump, it wasn't just relief. It was, this is where we're supposed to be. Whereas for Toronto, I think there was a little bit of a sense of relief by beating the Yankees and being able to live up to winning the division, getting the bye, all of that. It's probably not as simple as that, but now for Seattle going back home, I mean, where their pitching staff plays better, their power production is going to be a little bit more impactful, I think. It's going to be tough for the Blue Jays going forward in this series.
They're minus 137 home favorites tomorrow. The Mariners, that is, with George Kirby going. Shane Bieber starting for Toronto, plus 112. That price, run total 7. I know we've only got about 50 seconds left, but any early lean there?
Yeah, so the thing about Shane Bieber, and I've seen a lot of him, obviously, being an Indians/Guardians fan, he really only works half of the plate. He's really only going to work the outside of the plate to right-handed hitters, wants to throw that cutter, wants to throw that slider/curveball thing, out there on the outside corner. Seattle actually had the highest percentage of batted balls hit to the opposite field during the regular season. So I think they actually match up pretty well with Shane Bieber here in this one. George Kirby is a strike thrower. As long as he commands the zone, we know Toronto's going to make a ton of contact. If he avoids hard contact, then Seattle should be able to take a 3-0 lead here. Still deciding if I want to lay the price, but I do think Bieber will struggle a little bit in this start.
We'll have more championship series talk a little bit later on in the show, as Keith mentioned. But when we come back, Adam is going to stick around. We're going to shift gears, though, get into a little college football. Did you know we are at the point in the season where, yes, we have college football on Tuesday nights? Get ready. We'll preview that and more coming up next on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are in this beautiful, magnificent, glorious part of the college football season where we have football games in Division I on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday. Every single day you have the NFL or college football, meaningful, impactful games up until the day before Thanksgiving. We're on a beautiful stretch right here. Stormy Buonantony, Keith Irizarry, and Adam Burke with you here on Money Moves. And leave it to you to always be dialed into the midweek games, Adam. We've got a triple header tonight: New Mexico State, Liberty, Arkansas State, South Alabama, and FIU, Western Kentucky. You've got an article out at VSiN.com right now previewing some of your thoughts on the games. But one of these games you did fire on, you do like FIU. And I would love to know why, because as someone who knows nothing about FIU, it would really help me out.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to write about these things over at VSiN.com, right? And I'm somebody in college football and college basketball where I like to look well down the board at a lot of the group of 5 teams in college football. So, yeah, Conference USA, first week of November, we start the MAC. So we get MACtion back, which will be nice. But, yeah, Conference USA, it's not a very good conference. And so I kind of have an inclination to always look toward the underdog just because a lot of these teams feel like they shouldn't be laying that kind of number. And even though Western Kentucky's metrics are definitely better than FIU's, and we have seen money come in on Western Kentucky here throughout the course of this game, they don't really win by a whole lot of margin. You know, they had 476 yards worth of offense against Missouri State. They only had 27 points, won by 5. They actually got outgained by 100 yards in the game against Delaware that they won by a field goal. Like, this is a team that's able to throw it around the yard, pick up some yardage, stuff like that, but they just don't really blow teams out, and they don't really have a statistical profile suggesting that they should do it here to an FIU team that I think is improved this year under their first-year head coach, Willie Simmons. Keon Jenkins, their quarterback, is supposed to play tonight. He was taken out of the last game, but they were getting blown out in that one. FIU's they're respectable enough, I think, that you could take them plus the 10 here tonight. And it's a similar thing with like New Mexico State, for example, getting 10.5. Like, Liberty has not shown me anything suggestive of them being able to win a game by margin, to win a game, comfortably, and they just haven't played well. So, when you look at these teams, it is a little bit tough because most of them just generally aren't very good from a national standpoint. Within the conference, though, there can be some differences, but I don't think the differences are that big on the 2 games tonight with the double-digit dogs.
Yeah, I'll jump in there and I'll just say, something that's fun about, handicapping the quote unquote other conferences and stuff like that. I think there's always ways to find edges in those. I know in college basketball, I'm the CAA guy. I went to Hofstra. I love Hofstra. I like to follow that conference. So sometimes you'll find edges in that. How do you, Adam, find your edges in these quote unquote other conferences?
Yeah, I think the CAA argument's a really cool one, too, especially college basketball. Our college basketball betting guide comes out a week from Thursday, so October 23rd for that. And that's a lot of what I do. I look at a lot of those conferences, and it's a little bit different now because with Conference USA playing on Tuesday nights, people are going to bet it because it's there, because it's on, right? On a Saturday, they're not going to get the volume in that type of conference. So the odds makers aren't going to pay as much attention to it. Their numbers aren't going to be as good, stuff like that. So that's why I think you can find edges. It's a little bit less efficient of a market than, say, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, something like that. And that's especially true of college basketball, especially on those big Saturday cards, stuff like that. But as far as looking for edges, I mean, there's a few different things you want to look at. First of all, strength of schedule is really important because a lot of these teams in these group of 5 conferences, to fund all of these endeavors that they have, they've got to play those paycheck games early on in the season. So if their numbers look pretty decent relative to their peers and they've played a much more difficult schedule, that's something that you want to keep in mind. Whereas if you have a team that's looked really, really good, say North Texas, for example, last week, but hadn't played anybody yet, their strength of schedule was like 65 spots lower than South Florida's. I took South Florida in that game. Their numbers were similar enough, but South Florida had played the better schedule. So we're still in that time because you've only played 2 or 3 conference games where strength of schedule matters a lot if you start comparing that to the yards per play, the EPA per play metrics, stuff like that.
VSiN.com Managing Editor Adam Burke joining us here on Money Moves. And I know we talk sometimes about these games with a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek attitude, but you're dead on. There are so many opportunities and edges to buy in on some of these games. And I think that's why we talk, especially as it pertains to a college basketball, as you mentioned, find some of those lower level conferences that you can become an expert at, because like in college football, everybody's going to be betting Alabama and Georgia, right, whatever the marquee game of the week is. But if you can find your niche in something else, take advantage of it. I know you have a play in tomorrow's game as well, but I'll leave that to you to go check out on VSiN.com. He has a full breakdown of Delaware and Jacksonville State as well. You were a guest with Tim Murray, like you are regularly on the College Football Betting Podcast, which will drop in about an hour. So if you're not already downloading and subscribing to the podcast, do it so that you can get the latest edition. And you and Tim broke down a lot of what happened with Penn State. And then moving on from James Franklin, precipitous downfall over a 15-day span from being the number 2 team in the country and going into overtime with a chance to beat Oregon to dropping 2 games as a 20-plus point favorite and losing your job. How do you view Penn State this week as a 3.5-point dog now? No head coach, no Drew Aller, who's done for the season, and a road dog all of a sudden to Iowa.
Yeah, so, I was watching that Penn State-Oregon game with Femi Abebefe, who used to be a host here at VSiN, and then also Elliot Bowman, who was one of the producers here. And all of us universally agreed that James Franklin should have gone for 2 when they scored that touchdown late in the fourth quarter. That Oregon defense had been out on the field for a while. They were pushing them around in the trenches. He kicks the extra point. They go to the coin flip of overtime, and they wind up losing on the Drew Aller interception. And then, as you said, it just kind of all snowballed from there for this team. And Franklin was a guy that reliably beat up on bad teams, right? He loved the bully role. They were very successful in that. But then when you're not successful in the bully role anymore and you're losing to UCLA and Northwestern, I give Penn State a lot of credit for moving as quickly as they did in the hopes that maybe this is your lost season and next year's not going to be the same thing. Because now if you look at a team like Penn State, like their goals are completely unattainable now at this point in time. They're not going to the college football playoff. They're not playing in the Big Ten championship game. They're not going to do the things that they did last year. So you have an interim head coach who sometimes, injects a little bit of life into a program. But now you also have a freshman starting quarterback. Like, how much pride is in that locker room? What's going to happen with this team? I don't know, because I'm not a big Iowa fan, and Iowa's offense is, as usual, not very good. But you're going to have a freshman quarterback going up against a Kirk Ferentz defense that is notorious for forcing turnovers. That's what Iowa has always done and why they've always been so competitive when they don't have the same talent as a lot of these other teams in the Big Ten. So that would be the worry for me. If Iowa's going to win this turnover battle 3-0, something like that, how does Penn State cover this number? I have no idea, because you get a limited number of possessions when you play a team like Iowa that's very methodical and slow. So it would be Iowa or nothing for me. Probably not going to play this game. But if I was to take it, or if, maybe you found a dated number in a contest, something like that, it would be Iowa or nothing.
Adam, if we were on a game show right now and I was the host and this was the lightning round, and the lightning round is how real are they? So if I asked you how real they are, Indiana, how real are they?
Extremely real. So this is a team that I refuse to give them the benefit of the doubt last year because they didn't beat anybody, right? I mean, they got pushed around by Ohio State, and then Notre Dame took care of them in the playoffs. So they didn't beat anybody. They've beaten a somebody this year, and they went on the road to do it, and they were dominant in that game. They are very, very real.
And I think worth noting, too.
Stormy, can I jump in?
Sure.
No. You do your comment, and then I want to ask one more. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's worth noting that the 2 teams that you mentioned did play for the national championship last year, too. And immediately following that season ending, Curt Cignetti said, I'm not going to get bullied in the trenches anymore, and went and revamped his offensive line and went out and got a great quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. But go ahead, Keith.
I got 2 more teams that are undefeated right now, and I want to know how real they are. Texas A&M and Ole Miss. How real are they?
That's a good question.
Man.
Ole Miss especially, I really want to know your answer on.
It is a really good question, because Lane is one of those guys that finds a way to lose a game that he shouldn't, or they end up playing a 45-42 game and the defense doesn't get enough stops, something like that. Trinidad Chambliss played really, really well, but I mean, I don't think Ole Miss is super for real. Texas A&M is they're a hard team to figure out every year because of the talent that they have. And Marcel Reed is a good quarterback as well. I like Mike Elko a lot. I think Texas A&M is more real than Ole Miss, but I don't know if I fully believe in either one of them.
Okay, before we let you go, you mentioned the college basketball betting guide that's going to be coming out soon. We've got the NBA betting guide out now. If for VSiN Pro subscribers, you get both of the guides, everything that we do. What else is coming up on the website and people should be aware of?
Well, we also, coming up here at the end of the month, Halloween, and also the first day of November, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff for the Breeders' Cup as well. So we'll have plenty of stuff for the horse players that are out there. But yeah, I mean, the NBA season starts a week from today. So Zachary Cohen's team previews are a must read. We'll also have daily best bets from Zach. We cover it all, man. Go to VSiN.com and check it all out.
Yeah, VSiN.com/subscribe. We've got our special intro special going down right now. $9.99 your first month and 50% off for an annual subscription if you get in there. And again, that gives you access to all of the guides, all of the content, all of the 24/7 video programming as well. So appreciate, Adam, your time as always. We will see you again next Tuesday. Don't work too hard, okay? Take a break.